Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, November 4th, 2019 at 7:04 p.m. We're in regular session tonight. And our first item of business is establishing a quorum. We do have one member of council who will be with us shortly. And for that reason, we do have the quorum. But what I would like to do is entertain a motion to amend the agenda. What we will be doing is moving the reading for the third reading for the ordinance on Bailey's down below following our second and first readings of the amendments. That will give her time to get here so that she can participate in the discussion and the vote. Could I have a motion for amending the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second for amending the agenda, and that's to move the ordinance for third reading down to follow the second and first ordinance readings. All those in favor, and
I don't have to abstain from that, do I? No.
I don't think for amending the agenda.
Okay. All right,
no.
thank you. Yeah.
So thank you for asking. No. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, that motion carries. We have the disposition of minutes for the special session of City Council held on October 14th, as well as the regular session held on October 21st. If I could have a motion for approval of those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Under communications, we do have 3 items from the Division of Liquor Control. And I'll go through those briefly. Council members have all received a copy of them. The first one is for the Nelsonville Grocery, and this is to be an application to act as a liquor agency. And our law director has investigated this for us, and that kind of agency status is allowed for 5 businesses in the town. This would be the second one. And the agency may sell beer, wine, and low-proof mixed beverages for on-premises consumption with the appropriate D-class permits. So this is for the Nelsonville Grocery. That's 30 West Stimson Avenue. Gary and Jane Edwards as the owners. And council responses would need to be postmarked no later than November 12th. The second one is for transferring a liquor license for the corner on Union, which is located at 120 West Union Street, and that is transferring that liquor license, an application to transfer it to the restaurant known as Ciro at the same address. And that any responses from City Council, once again, would need to be submitted by November 22nd. The third one is transferring a liquor license from Wilson Enterprises at 33 North Court Street to D&J Athens LLC at 77 North Court. And this is for D1, which is beer only on premises, consumption in a sealed container for carryout. It's also for D2, that's wine and mixed for on-premises consumption or a sealed container for carryout. And then D3 for the liquor for on-premises consumption only until 1 a.m. in the morning. Any responses to that would need to be offered by November 29th, if council so chooses to comment on those. So, other communications from other council members? Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. It's nice to see a full crowd here this evening. On the eve of election night, I was just encouraging citizens eligible to vote, get out there and vote tomorrow. It's exciting, the opportunity to participate in our democracy. So that was one thing I wanted to share. Second, I wanted to acknowledge that I have been in receipt here of many emails in support of the Bailey's Trail System. Probably the most number of emails I've received in a very, very long time. I do have a few emails that were also written and shared, I believe, with me as well as the rest of council, challenging us to rethink a few things regarding the Baileys and to look at the numbers. So I do want to acknowledge that I have received those. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Casas?
Yes, I wanted to alert everybody to the next Athens City School Board meeting, which will be happening on November 21st. That is 6:30 p.m. In the Athens High School auditorium.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember McGee?
Thank you. I, too, wanted to emphasize, especially to this audience, because I'm sure quite a few of you sent the emails, that I received your emails. I read every one of them. I particularly took into account those emails from citizens of Athens County who live outside of the city of Athens, who pay taxes to the city of Athens. I just wanted to emphasize that so you understand your voice is not being discounted, but I did read them all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on to communications from other elected officials. Law Director Eliason. I saw Auditor Hecht.
No report.
Thank you. Mayor Patterson.
I too just want to echo what Member Butler and Member McGee was saying in terms of receiving a rather large number of emails regarding the Bailey. At last count, I think at 3 o'clock this afternoon, it was up to 42 emails. So, and likely more that have come in since.
Okay. So we will now go to ordinances for second reading. And what typically happens on the second readings is that I read the title. I will ask briefly if there are any comments. I do not believe we're suspending any of these ordinances tonight, so it will be a quick read through on those ordinances then, their titles. Ordinance 11119 is an ordinance to repeal and replace Athens City Code Title 35 Cable Communications and is introduced by Councilmember Fall. And if no comments or questions, I'll move on to the next. Ordinance 11219 is an ordinance authorizing amending Ordinance 118, Construction and Construction Engineering Services for the Richland Bridge over Coates Run project, which is number 321. That's introduced by Councilmember Kotsis. And if no questions, I'll move on to the next one. 11319 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA state project agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for a bridge repair project within the corporation boundary on State Route 56. This is PID 99578 and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Kotsis. No questions or comments. 11419 is the next one. This is an ordinance repealing Ordinance 2519, amending Athens City Code Title 17, Chapter 17.01, Municipal Income Tax, to add Section 17.01.066, Election, to be subject to Ohio Revised Code Section 718.80 through 718.95, and replacing it to incorporate the Ohio Revised Code sections by reference, introduced by Councilmember Reisner. No comments? Questions? I'll move on. Ordinance 11519 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 17, Chapter 17.01, Municipal Income Tax, Section 17.01.03, Definitions, and introduced by Councilmember Reisner. No comments or questions. I'll move on. 11619 is an ordinance amending the 2019 Appropriations Ordinance and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner. No comments. Ordinance 11719 is an ordinance authorizing the auditor to reduce 2019 year-end appropriations and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner. No comments or questions. 11819 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into contract with Finley Fire Equipment Company, Inc. to purchase a fire pumper truck and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Reisner. No comments or questions. 11919 is an ordinance authorizing disposal of a 1997 fire pumper truck no longer needed for a municipal purpose. This is introduced by Councilmember Butler. We'll now move on to ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 12019 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 7, Chapter 7.05, Parking Regulations. This is introduced by Councilmember Grace, but I believe Councilmember Fall, are you speaking to this tonight? Thank you.
Basically, this will be a code change to help certain parties uptown be able to afford uptown parking. First is 7.05.22A, Section 3, low-intensity zones and all accessible parking spaces will be 50 cents per hour. So that's through the whole city. It's the accessible parking spaces. That's the change that's happening in the council. in the code. And then there will be also a change in time that parking will be to. And so that would be 7.05.25. The provisions relating to on-street parking meters shall not apply on Sundays or holidays or other days between the hours of 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. So that's the two changes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions about 12019? Okay. I'm sorry. Yes, Councilmember McGee.
Thank you, and I think anything that would lower the cost of parking for the citizens of Athens is commendable, and I support it. I would mention that my memory of what happened when we agreed to raise the hours was that the reason being that the city seemed concerned with some of the workers in the restaurants and the bars taking up the parking spaces. There was some sort of statement by the administration, the mayor, indicating that there would be some concessions for those workers who would have to be paying increased costs. So I would call upon you not to forget that and hope that in the near future that the parking garage would reflect some sort of special rates for the workers who work uptown and have to pay parking. So thank you.
Still working on that.
Thank you.
In a legal fashion.
Good.
Okay. All right.
Actually, I do have.
Yes.
I did.
Councilmember Constance.
Thank you. I did have the opportunity to reach out and have a conversation with City Planner Paul Logue, and one of the conversations that we've heard as we made these the first changes earlier in the spring or early summer was the movie theater scenario where you go uptown and you'd have to leave the movie in order to feed the meter. Planner Logue mentioned that he did reach out to the movie theaters and did not get a response back, so there was no conversation or communication about that. So he's, hearing some of these adjustments, he didn't seem to think that this was too much of an issue.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Patterson.
I did have a communication with the Dean for Fine Arts and asked about revenue at the Athena as well as other events at Cantner Hall. And to your point, that's something I'd heard from a lot of citizens saying it was difficult to go out to dinner and to attend a show, whether it's at the Athena or in Cantner Hall or whatever. And so we felt that it was prudent to make some adjustments. Just so council knows, because I asked the Deputy Service Safety Director to look at revenue from the 7 to 8 o'clock hour, and it would be a decrease by about $2,800 a month by not having a 7 to 8. But that was, we felt reasonable, and that we're still able to generate the revenue needed for the parking enforcement out there anyway. So again, it's not that much of a change in terms of revenue, and it's affording people the opportunity to safely, to where they're not worried while they're at dinner or at a movie to worry about whether or not they're going to come back to their vehicle with a parking fine. So it was working. It was a compromise with hearing the citizens and working through it. And I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to Ordinance 12119. This is an ordinance rezoning portions of Court, State, Carpenter, and Fern Streets from a B3 zone to a B2D zone. And this is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. This was brought forward from the Planning Commission, where they have recommended to rezone these areas from B3 to B2D. That changes certain requirements in the bulk requirements, and allows for certain types of parking restrictions to be different parking restrictions, and where parking can now be allowed and what would be allowed for workers for those specific businesses. The mayor has been a mover and shaker on this one. Did you have something to add?
I mentioned this before when this came up in committee, and that is that a B3 zoning is basically designed for a suburban neighborhood, whereas a B2D is designed for an urban neighborhood. And this has been in the comprehensive plan. It was in the original comprehensive plan to rezone the North Court Street block. It's in the new comprehensive plan, once that finally gets codified by council, but it's in there as well. And so it's never been entertained to remove it from the comprehensive plan. You know, and it's also a tool that we can use to where the businesses on the ground floor or the first floor do not have to provide parking. And we know from the parking study that the north block of Court Street from State up to Carpenter, that there is a large percentage of parking available there for those retail customers to park at a free meter, well, I say free, a open metered space to be able to go into that business. So it's, and the other two blocks, just for everyone who's here, you know, the southern blocks of Court Street, those are currently zoned B2D. So it's bringing all of Court Street into alignment with what we deem as being the proper zoning, which is an urban zone.
Right. I also, to emphasize many of the discussions we've had, already have mentioned the parking study that Paul Logue had completed, which people can get from the city. It's on our city website. If you're interested in some of the other things found with that parking study. So, thank you. Other questions?
Great. All right. Yes, Joan. You want to do name, address, and if you represent a group.
Joan Kornansky, 56 Mount Street. I'm representing myself. I did appear before the Planning Commission when this was brought up, and there were several people there at both Planning Commission meetings, two consecutive weeks, and this very rezoning ordinance was brought up several years ago and was defeated because the concern was that elimination of parking requirements for businesses for the first floor of that last block of Court Street would drive those vehicles into the close-in neighborhoods, Grosvenor, Franklin, probably even on East State Street, Mount Street, North Congress. So what I tried to do, and so it kind of just faded away because people were very concerned. And so it's back again. And I don't disagree that perhaps some kind of special zoning should exist for that block of Court Street. But I am a little concerned about the parking. And so I went to the code office last week to try and find out exactly how many parking places were required for each one of the businesses. But I just did from Fern to Carpenter on both sides. And the information I got was not as accessible because they included for the addresses both residential and businesses. So I couldn't come up with a figure, right? So what I would like to know, and maybe people on City Council or the City Administration could tell me, how many parking places will be forgiven if you change the zone from a B3 to a B2D? And that is my question. So maybe someone from Council can determine that or find that out from the code office. I couldn't get specifics on that.
Okay, appreciate the question. Thank you very much. Okay.
There will be a public hearing with this on November 18th.
Okay. Mr. Delac, Rob, yes. Name, address, and if you represent a group.
So Rob Delac, 124 Morris Avenue here in the city. I represent myself. One point I'd just like to make, I've spoken in support of this at the planning meetings, but one of the things to keep in mind with this is removing the parking requirements does not mean that the businesses will not provide parking. It means that they don't have to. So if they're a wise landowner or landlord or business owner, they may find that they need to have some parking available, and they will still acquire that parking and provide it for their customers or their employees or their tenants. So all this does is gives them flexibility. It says for the ground floor business, you don't have to have parking, but again, they still could do that if they feel it's necessary. So it's really giving flexibility. It's not just carte blanche.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for the comments and questions. We'll move on to Ordinance 12219. This is an ordinance amending the 2019 appropriation ordinance and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. Allow me to read the pertinent sections. An ordinance amending the 2019 appropriation ordinance. 14018 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums. $42,955 to FEMA Fund 588, transaction code 600, to transfer to Capital Fund for reimbursement of a fire department grant. $20,000 to Parking Garage Fund 730.718, transaction code 300, to cover year-end expenses, and $25,000 to Water Debt Fund 744, transaction code 400, to pay down $100,000 on loan and roll over $150,000, and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. The 2019 Appropriation Ordinance 140-18 is further amended as follows: decreasing Garbage Fund 760.636, transaction code 200, to $1,500, and increasing Garbage Fund 760.636, transaction code 500, by same amount, and decreasing and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. Section 3, the auditor is hereby authorized to make the following inter-fund transfer from FEMA Fund 580 to Capital Improvements Fund 580, amount $42,955.
Okay. Questions or comments? Okay, thank you. It's been read for the first time. We'll move on to Ordinance 12319, and this is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $150,000 of notes by the City of Athens, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of renewing notes issued for the purpose of paying part of the cost of design engineering of the water treatment plant facilities improvements project 307 and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not going to read the whole ordinance and sections. The title pretty much crystallizes everything that needs to be said. We're paying down on a note that we borrowed in order to do the planning for the water treatment plant. This will pay part of it. We'll still owe some, and I think probably by next year we'll be able to pay the whole thing off.
Great, thank you. If no comments or questions, we'll move on to Ordinance 12419. This is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $170,000 of notes by the City of Athens, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of renewing notes previously issued to pay part of the costs of improvements to this municipality's wastewater treatment plant and declaring an emergency. It is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. This is very similar to the previous ordinance, only instead of the water treatment plant, this is the wastewater treatment plant. Again, this is to pay the cost of the design and engineering by an amount of $170,000, and I believe by next year or the year after, the debt will be paid.
Okay, thank you. Ordinance 125, any questions or comments on that? Okay. Ordinance 12519 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to hire a water labor supervisor at a pay rate of up to 40% through the assigned pay grade. and is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me read the pertinent sections. Whereas the employee being promoted from a water maintenance technician to a water labor supervisor possesses the required licenses for the position and has the experience necessary to take the examination for the Ohio EPA Class II sewer collection license, and whereas having possession of these licenses will result in a savings to the city, be it ordained by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio, Section 1, in accordance with the Non-Union Personnel Fringe Benefits Package, Ordinance 143-18, Section 21B, Compensation. Athens City Council does hereby authorize the Service Safety Director to hire a water labor supervisor at a pay rate of up to 40% through the assigned pay grade. That's all.
Okay, thank you. If no other questions or comments on that one, what we'll do now is move on to the ordinance for third reading. Sarah. And there is room in here in the front seat, in the front row, if you'd like to come in. And there's also room over in the back. Yeah, so just raise your hand if you've got a spare seat by you, so somebody can sit. And we'll try and keep track of that. Also, just an announcement to let you know that there are, as Councilmember Butler reminded me, just to let everyone know that there are fire exits. So the one avenue out that way, and then there's also a fire exit door here. If we would, by any chance, have an emergency, you never know. There was a fire alarm going off when we came in. So we now have Ordinance 11019, and this is an ordinance for third reading. And this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to provide financial support from the city's transient guest tax to the Outdoor Recreation Council of Appalachia, known as ORCA, for funding the Bailey's Trail System along with other recreational activities, and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to hereby make a motion to table Ordinance 11019. I need a second.
Second.
Okay.
Was there a second?
Yes, so we do have a motion and second,
Okay.
and we can now open it up for
No,
discussion.
I need to give my reasons why.
Fine,
Okay.
yes.
The reason I'm making a motion to table is that I would like to have some more information concerning the financial burden this may place on the city. And I'd like to have an independent financial consultant located by the city to look at the various data that we have, analyze it, and come back with a report as soon as possible, because I'd like to move with this as quickly as we can. I'd like to have it untabled again by our next session, if possible. But that's my reason. So I'm opening up to our committee, Finance and Personnel, to discuss the tabling of this ordinance.
Yes, and it would be open to all council members.
Correct.
Open to the table discussion. Are there any comments? Councilmember McGee.
I've been sitting here poring over these figures, trying to make sense out of them, and I want everybody in this audience to understand this. There's probably nobody in this room that's opposed to the Bailey's Trail system. Nobody. Okay, but what we're talking about when Jeff makes this kind of motion to table, we're talking about looking at the finances and seeing what it's really going to cost and what it's really going to bring in. And I agree with what he said. It may be unpopular to all of you here to show up and hear this, but I don't think we have the information that we need on this yet. I've been pouring through this. I see inconsistencies, and a short break so that we can finally get the information, I think, would benefit everybody in Athens, especially those people who are going to be paying for it. So I would thank you for your motion.
Comments from other council members?
Member Grace?
Member Grace, yes.
Thank you, and I appreciate everyone's consideration in the adjustment of the schedule this evening. Yeah, I absolutely support the Bailey's Trail, the building of this, the project, and I support the city investing in this project. However, as Member McGee said, I also have been reading, thoroughly analyzing, trying to understand the numbers that have been provided to us and presented to us. And I've found multiple cases where there are inconsistencies, and this is a significant ask for the city, and I think we need to be absolutely certain before we enter into an agreement of what our obligation, our financial obligation is. And so thank you, Member Reisner, for bringing the motion. Again, I also would hope that we could have a thorough analysis and have the concerns of the city's long-term financial obligation answered before our next session.
Other council members? Okay.
Member
Councilmember Butler, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, President Isley. I am not in favor of tabling and am optimistic about moving forward. I'm such of the opinion because of the withdrawal section that exists within the document. Any member may withdraw from ORCA upon 90 days written notice to each of the other members. So that is why I stand at the moment. Thank you.
Good point.
And I know we have a lot of members here that are interested in making brief comments, perhaps about Bailey's, and I have discussed this with the law director, and since you all are here tonight, rather than taking the vote on tabling and having everybody leave for the evening when you've taken the time to come, we would like to open it up for comments from the public. What I will do is I will set the timer. Some of you are familiar with it, some of you aren't. It's 3 minutes, and we really need to honor that tonight so that enough people get the chance to make a comment. When you go over, it makes it unfair to somebody else, and I don't really need to be in the position of doing that, trying to enforce that. I shouldn't have to. You should keep track on your own, and when the buzzer goes, you stop. That's what Noah Tremblay did for us last week. Before we go to the public comments, I do want to offer the mayor a chance to make some comments, if you would want to, or not.
Certainly. I know council has been pondering over this for quite some time, although this has been a project that everyone has been well aware of for a number of years now. I also want to state that someone has been highly recommended to the city as a third party to review the pro forma that Quantified Ventures has put forward, and I am waiting to get correspondence back from the individual who's up in the Cleveland area. So as someone highly recommended, I'd like to work quickly on getting the pro forma looked at and get some answers for council. But when I look at the need for us to diversify our local economy, I believe that the Bailey Trail System is one of the ways in which we can do that. But I appreciate council's conscious and cautious maneuver on this.
Okay. Councilmember Crowell.
May I ask a question about procedure? Mm-hmm. If we do not vote to table this ordinance now, then it comes up for a vote after third reading, or acceptance or opposition. Correct?
And it could be amended. And then at that point, if there are amendments to be shared tonight and to be made, then that would be regarded as its first reading. So it would get it in motion, yes.
And what is the, for tabling, what is the vote total? Is it a majority of? Majority?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments amongst council members or administration before I open it up to the floor? Councilmember McGee.
I noticed that the entire council might not have received the email that had been sent out originally from Seth Brown to Dawn McCarthy, answering certain questions that had been raised, including the number of expected visitors. But the very last question was, can they really opt out of paying the money back? And the answer was, since this is not a general obligation bond issued by the City of Athens, the city can get out of payments. There will be political and financial implications to such an action. I have no idea what he's talking about. Mr. Brown appeared at the very first hearing concerning this 6 weeks ago or something, and we really didn't, I feel, have the opportunity to get some of those questions answered. And I don't care whether he answers them by email or whether he's here in person, but I certainly would like to know what he's talking about when he says what financial implications those are. So I do want to emphasize that when you're going with this city can opt out, what does that really mean? So,
Okay.
thank you.
Councilmember Grace.
Yeah, and that's just I felt comfortable and confident with the language of the ordinance saying the city can choose to withdraw. However, when I read through all the information from Quantified Ventures, there is this, the city can close out the contract by assuming its portion of the EIB through traditional debt. And that, much like Member McGee, I'm like, well, I would like to know what exactly they mean by that. What is the city obligated to in terms of the debt? So.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and open it up, and what I would ask people, I know you're in support of the, many of you are in support. I shouldn't assume everyone is, but rather than having 18 people say the same thing, if you have something new to add, wonderful. And if you just want to sit and be here and be supportive, then that is fine too. And that's certainly an indication to us with a full house tonight. So don't feel compelled to come up to 3 minutes to repeat what the previous person said. I do have a comment from Auditor Hecht, and before we open up to the public.
Thank you. I have mixed feelings about this, but I think having an understanding of the money and what we're committing to, what the opt-out would really mean. We have a range that we're paying. Are we going to end up paying the top amount all the time? And I think there's something to be said for this 20-year commitment for council members understanding what we're really getting into here. I'm in favor of this, but I feel like, as Member Grace just mentioned, some of the language seems a little contradictory, and I think the comments about the political fallout is we're not the only ones that are entering into the same contract. The county is making the same monetary commitment, and I think we would have trouble entering into any other commitments with the county or the Port Authority if they should decide to take out the bond on our behalf in the future. And I also think the fact that this trail is not in the city limits, that we really need to be able to justify why we're using city dollars for this. I've sat in on all of these meetings, and I'm not a financial professional exactly, but I think I appreciate that the mayor has already made a contact from the name that was recommended to us, and I'd like to see them have an opportunity. And council can move this along as fast as they want once we have a better understanding of what's going on. That being said, I won't be overly upset if you don't table it tonight. That's really council's decision after you hear everyone else. But I'm conservative when it comes to our city dollars, and I think we'd all be more comfortable if we knew just a little bit more.
Okay. I think we'll move along. Mr. Swearingen, do you have a slide for us? And I'll set the timer once you've let us know. If when you come up to the podium, you can give name, address, and if you represent a group.
Tom Swearingen, 23440 Lightning Road, Guysville, Ohio, Athens County resident. I believe I represent anybody that's got any kind of concern relative to carbon offsets, carbon debt, and global warming. which would be out of 7 billion people on the planet, a pretty substantial amount. I do have one question I would like to ask before I start.
The timer has started. What's your question? Quickly.
Okay, the question is, the projections, and if we're going to use numbers, everybody needs to use the same numbers.
And we're not here to answer
Okay.
the questions
Okay.
of the full debate. We're here to get your comments
Okay,
tonight.
understood.
Okay.
The projections are $6.9 million in government receipts through all the different members of ORCA. But nobody has said with this Pay for Success program what percentage of what the receipts are, what the ratio is between government receipts and the payout is. The greater the success, theoretically, the greater the margin of payout. But nobody has set this lineal or progressive amount yet. I've searched through, I've had 30 different documents open on my desk between browsers and paper documents, and I have yet to find out anything delineating that specific
Okay.
hockey puck.
You have 2 minutes left.
Okay. But I'd like to double down on the debt issue, the financials. There's also carbon debt. We're asking 181,000 visitors to come in from all parts unknown, driving their Subarus and their SUVs, consuming gasoline, contributing to carbon debt, and we have not once mentioned, at least publicly or any document that I've seen, offsetting that carbon debt. And yet we as a community profess to be carbon conscious, environmentally conscious, globally conscious, diversification conscious of other peoples and everything else. All these progressive ideas, but nobody's mentioned carbon debt. Now, I have gone through and I have done some calculations. There is that spreadsheet, which apparently that's not going to work out too well. But I've minimized this to the most conservative fashion possible to create the smallest carbon debt you possibly can for 181,000 people. 5% of 181,000 coming in from outside of 250 miles, the professionals, the balance being within a 30-mile travel radius of any trail end. And the least I can come out with to carbon offset that is in photovoltaic language, solar photovoltaic panels, is 2.5 megawatts of solar photovoltaic to offset all that fossil fuel being burned by the Subarus. And that's just to break even. If we don't put any carbon offsets in, then there is no break even. We're just going down the pike in the direction of what some people in the federal administration really don't care about either. I mean, if you realize that that particular administration doesn't think global warming is real. So the question is, does this council and does this community believe in global warming, climate change by human means, all that carbon that's been down there for millions of years coming back up into the atmosphere and contributing catastrophically to human problems and future generations, your granddaughters and grandsons, or are we just going to just let it go? So council has, at this point in time, the ability to either leverage two positions, one of two positions.
Thank
no
you.
vote.
Thank you for the comments. Thanks.
The no vote would leverage.
Thank you for the comments, please.
Okay.
We have your chart. We'll print them up. We need to be fair to everybody tonight. Anybody else would like to speak tonight to offer a comment? Susan?
Anyways, it'd take me too long to fill
Thank
all
you.
that out.
Name, address, and if you represent a group, please. Thank you.
My name is Susan Urano, and I represent the Athens County Foundation. I haven't spoken to council for a long time, so I feel compelled to be here tonight. First, I want to notice all the young faces in the audience, and that to me is exciting, and that kind of spells out the future of our community. I've lived here for almost 30 years, and in that time, especially in my role as director of the foundation, we have seen more hungry people. We had a grants committee meeting this morning, and we had probably twice the requests for feeding people in Athens County. So economic challenges have been with us, but seem to be growing, especially for people outside the fringes of the city of Athens. And I see this as the biggest opportunity to transform lives in Athens County since I've lived here in 30 years. To date, $4 million have already been raised of grant funding, no city-county money. We are serving as fiscal agent for phase 1 of the trail, which is being built now. A lot of us have been on the trail. It is stunning. It will build 14 miles of trail by the end of December. And I have to share with you a story that one of my colleagues called me this morning. He wanted to be here tonight, but he couldn't be here. Reverend Peter Galbraith from Nelsonville, and he was with some friends last week and relatives, and one of his wife's relatives lives in Alaska and was asking him about the Bailey's Project. So this is a national spotlight on Athens County right now. It's also been the most collaborative project I have ever worked on in Athens County. There are probably 15 or 20 individuals and organizations that are all pulling together to make this happen. So I think that's significant and something to pay attention to. I don't think you're going to get the level of detail on the finances that you're seeking, but I admire your effort to try and find them because they're projections, so they're not the past.
And you have about 20 seconds left, Susan.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Really, this is a win-win for us, for the village of Chansey, for the young people in the audience. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have somebody else? Yes, thank you.
Hello, I'm Julie Paxton Pagan, 7 Maple Grove Way in Athens. I am a professor of economics at Ohio University, and I study economic development and poverty alleviation. I've also worked at the World Bank and have spent a career working on poverty alleviation projects. And I would have to say that this is the most exciting economic development project that I have seen for Athens County and our region, and it's unique in so many ways. And I feel like this pay for success model that they're offering really does reduce the city's risk. There are a lot of ways that we're protected from those financial and the investment in the pay for success model, and it's worked in a lot of other fields. This is the first time it's been used in an outdoor rec project, which is really exciting, and it has garnered national attention. So a lot of people are very excited about it. It has all the hallmarks of best practices in economic development. It has the broad coalition that Susan mentioned. It is a sustainable use of our natural resources. Unlike the extractive industries that have been here for years and years where we take things out, this is a sustainable use of our beautiful natural resources. It promotes health and wellness for our communities, and it attracts and retains citizens that would like to live in an area with a high quality of life. And most importantly, from an economic development standpoint, the benefits of economic development are widespread. This transcends just the hospitality industry. All of us living in the city of Athens and in southeastern Ohio are going to benefit from this one way or another, whether or not we ride a mountain bike or like to hike on the trails or are bird watchers. Even if we never step foot on it, we're going to benefit. Because of the tax implications, we're going to be raising a lot of revenue through the tax base for better schools, better hospitals, better infrastructure, better services. In my class that I teach, we are working on issues to maximize the local benefits. We're working with the village of Chansey to include affordable housing options through, as the process of gentrification would inevitably occur. We're working with the Commissioner of New York Housing that is guiding the class in offering a lot of different options that will help protect citizens in Athens County. And we're also working on historic signage throughout the trail system and at the trailhead. So that will also create a sense of place and encourage our visitors to visit other areas within Athens.
Thank you.
Could I ask if the people who are up here would identify whether you have any interest in the particular subject to either being on the council or anything, or receiving any funds from any organization. I would just like that to be specified.
You're asking beyond them representing a group, which is what you've asked for
Right,
before.
yeah.
You're asking of them
whether
what?
they're involved in the particular group that has designed this and has been part of the interim documents, or whether it's just something that the citizen has read and is up here.
So you can, if you would comply with that, that would be helpful for Councilmember McGee.
Yeah, in my case, it's just, it's academic, and there's no financial interest in my part, or, yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Jeff Morgan, 4 Edgewood Court. I've been a resident for 16 years. I'm representing myself. I think the email that you received from me today speaks for itself. As a business leader and a financial professional, I think you can diligence yourself and talk yourself out of anything. We took big risks in the early 2000s to keep the company that I work for here. It took guts, and I think the community has benefited tremendously from the risks that we've taken. I think in my email it was very clear that for our business to remain relevant for the long term, Athens has to be relevant. I look at this as a project that couldn't meet those standards any greater. So from my standpoint, I think you've made a huge mistake in tabling something that has momentum behind it. The last thing that is not good for any project or investment is when you absolutely crush momentum, and that's what I've seen City Council do here tonight. From my perspective, that risk looks pretty low, but that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there others who want? Yes, Mr. Monday. Name, address, if you represent a group, if you're receiving any financial interest.
All right.
Thank you.
And I have no financial interest in anything related to this project.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us know.
My name is Chris Monday, 9 Garfield Avenue. I have no interest in this, though, when I heard about it. I did consider trying to buy something in Chansey, but I fantasize about things all the time. So anyway, I think that it's a great project. I look forward to it coming. Tabling it for what you guys say would be like a week, an attempt to table it for a week to like get some things straight for money that's going out of our town. I mean, it's a week. I appreciate it. I appreciate those of you who want to consider this, because even if every person in here stands up and says that the developers are 100% trustworthy, I mean, as we've seen blatantly time and time again, is that they're not always. And if there is something hidden in it, if there is something that doesn't make sense, highly appreciate that you guys are trying to make sense of it, and that you're trying to hurry, because it is an awesome project. So 1 week's time doesn't seem like as big of a disaster as what I feel like some people are making it out to be. I appreciate your comments about being concerned about gentrification, because it does seem inevitable. I worry about it, and I'm glad that people are thinking about it and hoping to prevent it on a massive scale. That's all. I just wanted to express my appreciation for your caution. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Joan Kornansky, 56 Mount Street, and I'm not representing anyone but myself, except perhaps maybe the 20, 25 people that I talked to in the last several weeks through many social and community organization events that have said to me, what is this $90,000? What is this about? So I appreciate the fact that some people have had years to work on this and have engaged them in this. These are great kind of projects. But the fact that many, many people in our town are hardly aware that this is even going on. And so I came tonight to voice some of their concerns. I'm writing in reference to Ordinance 011019, providing funding for the Bailey's Trail System. In general, I have no objection to the establishment of this particular trail system. What troubles me is how and why City Council and the City of Athens administration could authorize an annual commitment of $90,000 for 20 years. Several financial consequences come to mind. State funding could continue to dwindle. The decrease in OU student enrollment will cause a decrease in city payroll taxes, both students, staff, and faculty, and with the cost of health care increasing, Athens payroll costs will continue to increase. With this in mind, is it fiscally prudent to commit city funds to Bailey's Trail System? All of this said, the point I would like to make is how the city and its citizens could benefit from this proposed amount, $90,000 a year for 20 years. Were it instead earmarked towards the city's needs and aspirations, health and safety, hiring an additional police officer or hiring an additional firefighter, which was promoted by City Council with the most recent payroll tax referendum, but the city was unable to meet or fulfill these positions because of increased payroll expenses. Hiring an additional code officer, which I think all those of us that live in the city are fully aware that we could use. Installing motion sensor solar lights in areas of the city with limited street light visibility. Although the city would like to purchase the AEP streetlight system as a solution to the problems with current streetlights, this is going to take some time. And walking at night in some neighborhoods is scary when streetlights are not functioning. So we could talk about environment and sustainability. Promoting the use of reusable shopping bags, providing free reusable bags with the city's logo would really go a step towards working out the elimination of plastic bags.
Got 20 seconds left, Joni.
Actualizing on city properties the planting of native trees, shrubbery, grasses, and flowering plants to promote a healthier ecosystem for bees, insects, and butterflies. As representatives of our city, I am sure some of these items are also on your wish list, and I hope you weigh them against a 20-year indebtedness that this ordinance would impose. Thank you.
Thank you. Name and address if you represent a group and any financial interest.
My name is Meredith Erlewine. I live at 1 Bryan Road here in Athens. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but I should say that I own Athens Bicycle here in Athens, Ohio. I've lived in Athens since 1986. I discovered my love of mountain biking right here in Athens in 1991, and I've been obsessed ever since. I'm in support of the Bailey's Trail Project, and I have a few comments I'd like to make. As a certified mountain bike tour guide and credentialed mountain bike skills instructor, I've been providing tours and clinics in destination mountain bike locations since the early 2000s. From my experience, I can tell you that mountain bikers travel to great places so that they can enjoy beautiful forests and practice their sport. They like to visit new towns, they like to meet new people, and they like to get to know new trail systems. Mountain bikers rent hotel rooms, we shop at grocery stores, we fill up at gas stations, in our Subarus. We eat in restaurants, and we pay local people for services. In 2019 alone, I have personally spent 44 nights out of town for the purpose of my tour guiding and clinic stuff that I do. I've camped, I've rented hotel rooms and cabins, I've stayed in lodges, and I've rented Airbnbs. I've spent money everywhere I went. And my point isn't my own personal impact as like one mountain biker, but that every place I went, there were between 20 and 12,000 other mountain bikers doing like what we love to do. There's mountain bikers doing this all over the country, all over the world, all the time. And I would like to welcome them here and reap the benefits in my own community that I see happening all these places that I go visit. There's not very many places in the country with such a huge piece of land available as a blank slate. The Bailey's has the potential to offer more mileage of trails than anywhere else within hundreds of miles. That is a unique thing to mountain bikers. I can't think of anywhere else I've been in any of my 28 years of mountain biking that has anything close to what we could create here. And with so many major partners at the table ready to contribute who have been working for so long, I think it would be a shame to purposefully vote to miss this opportunity. And of course, I was thinking about this as a vote pitch, not a table comment. I hope that everybody here has a passion that takes you places and gives you satisfaction. It could be hunting, shopping, running, music, art, watching your kids play soccer or hockey. Anything that takes you places that when you get there, you experience the fellowship and the shared excitement that mountain bikers do when we visit a mountain biking destination. And everywhere I've gone for the past year or more, mountain bikers from all over the Midwest and the East Coast have said, Meredith, when is the Bailey's going to be done? I'm ready to come visit you in Athens finally. So I would like to make ourselves known for something besides Ohio University and something besides bar hopping.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Rob Black, 124 Morris Avenue, here in Athens, Ohio. I am an officer in the bicycle club here, serve on several other bike committees, so involved in the biking community here quite actively. I have already invested in a property in Chansey, by the way, to reveal that. So I've purchased a very small house, and I'm currently remodeling it, so I already have renters in it. But I really want to say that one thing, I think this is an opportunity we cannot pass up. We should move quickly. I don't want to say you should not table. Of course, we should probably think things through, but I don't want to see a delay. I'm a little afraid that if we reset the clock here, we have to go back through 3 readings. I'm not sure if we do, but it may not be just a week delay. That's another month or month and a half at least if we have to reset the clock on the readings. There's other funding waiting on this. Even the county is sitting there waiting for this to be passed to make their move with the funding. So let's do it as quickly as we can. The other thing I'd like to say is there's already things in the works because of the potential of this project. Tomorrow night, the Bicycle Club is organizing a meeting to put together a mountain bike festival, trying to determine what the scope of that might be.
That are there, we have a sustainable trail development course in our curriculum. So they will be highly utilized. We've already started partnering with the Appalachian Conservation Corps and other groups. So again, this is happening. Some of the other things that are exciting are spurs and bike path connection to Hocking College. We've got a new nature center that's coming online right on campus, and so there's possibilities of connecting to Doneville Trailhead, and just the programming alone in terms of interpretation. You mentioned birding, but that doesn't have to go, on its separate. I see our eco guides, my students who know their birds, their trees, their ecosystem, guiding mountain bike tours, and so, that including other programs, working with kids, doing bicycling, events and things like that. And I just think there's such a community development health. We put care for our environment, care for people, and care for a fair way to access these dollars and this experience. I think it's a win. It's a win-win for a lot of folks. So, thank you.
Other people who'd like to comment?
Hi, my name is Danny Twilley. I'm a resident at 33 Graham Drive in Athens, Ohio.
I am not particularly representing any single group, but I have been involved with the project from very, very early on. I am receiving zero financial obligation or financial benefits from this. I am a faculty member in Recreation, Parks, and Leisure Studies. I direct the Ecotourism Certificate Program as well. And I've been very blessed in my life, as I've said many times in this room, to travel all over the country and many parts of the world looking at destinations and areas that are trying to attract tourists. I've spent time up here in front of this committee, in front of this room, and many of you talking about various case studies. I am not here today to reiterate those. As you are very well aware, I have shared many of those with you. I've offered myself up to answer any questions, to engage in dialogue, because I think that is an important part of this process. This project has been in front of the community for almost 4 years now and has been brought up in front of City Council for probably the last year and a half and pay for success as well. Whether you table it or not, that is your choice, that is your vote. But I am here to tell you that what else do we have coming down the pike that's going to bring people here? What else do we have? If there's another project that you all have been working on, that have been created, then please share. And if it's something I believe in, I'll stand behind you. I will work with you on it. This project has garnered many, many people and many different organizations, and most of them are not trail users and will not use the trail. But they know something good when they see it. I would also like to say that many people who have given their time to help see this project to where it is today have been long-standing members of this community who deeply care for the betterment of this community. And they are not asking you or wanting you to do anything that will put this community or this city in harm's way financially. They want what's best for this community. I ask you, as someone said earlier, there are many reasons to say no, but it takes guts and courage to say yes. We might not know exactly what the future holds. No one can predict that, but we can make informed decisions. And we can think about and look at other places who have done exactly what we are trying to do, and we have seen that success. Yes, there's many different ways to measure it, but we know that spending comes. We know that people come to this. We have put many things in place to ensure that people will come here. So whether you do it or not, just know that a lot of people care.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Carrie Boyle. I'm representing the Athens City County Health Department. Our address is 278 West Union Street. No financial involvement in this, but I have had the great opportunity to be involved in some of the planning meetings with this representing health. So, like I said, I work with the health department. I'm a health educator there. I coordinate a grant called Creating Healthy Communities. I've stood here before in front of you. I'm here again today. Again, to urge you to support the Bailey's Trail System. I'm going to try to keep my statement short into just 3 points. First, I've seen a lot of confusion for funding for projects in our county lately. I've seen this in the newspaper, on social media, in Facebook comments, and even in person with our community members. And I wanted to shed light on this because I think it's very important to understand, and it's very important that the community is provided the correct information. So starting out, the Chancey Bike Spur funding is not coming from taxpayers' dollars. That's coming from ODOT's TAP programming, which is Transportation Alternatives Program. I think there's been a lot of confusion about that. They get that funding from the gas tax. The funding we are requesting of you today is not directly coming from our residents' dollars. It's coming from transient guest tax dollars from people visiting our area, staying in hotels, Airbnbs, etc. Very specific funding sources for very specific and important projects. Secondly, the Bailey's Trail System, along with its sister projects, as I like to call it, like the Chancey Bike Spur, will provide direct benefits to our citizens. It will provide an access route to food, medical services, community resources, jobs, and more. That's huge for our area. I've driven on State Route 13 many times and passed people on the side of a road in a wheelchair and a bicycle walking. You can actually get on Google Maps, I don't know if they've updated it, and see people photographed doing this. We know this is not safe, and we know it's happening all over our county. And unfortunately, there's been accidents resulting in deaths and injuries from lack of infrastructure to support these alternate forms of transportation. This project will make our residents safer, especially because of all the sister projects that are attached to it. And lastly, I just want to say that this is an incredible opportunity. The funding options, partnerships, national attention, community partnership and growth may not come around again for our area with a unique opportunity like this. So please don't ignore the benefits this will have on our community. The Bailey's Trail System will create opportunities for better health outcomes, economic development, and transportation. And I just say this too because I know the economic development and tourism is important, but I don't want you to miss the opportunity it provides for our own residents here in our county. We have a chance to impact that. And that's it. Thank you.
Other people who'd like to make a comment? Okay. If no others, then we have a motion and second for tabling Ordinance 11019. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So we have 4 in support of tabling, 2 against, 1 abstention. So the motion has been tabled, or the ordinance has been tabled. And if I understand from Councilmember Reisner's comments, as well as others, there is interest in moving that forward as quickly as we can to answer some of the questions about the financial obligation for this. And you have made contact, Mayor Patterson, with an independent advisor.
I have not received word back from the individual yet, but yes,
Okay.
I will work very quickly on getting information back from the third party.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight to make the comments, to offer that insights for us, and to see such solid community support for this. Yeah.
If I could ask a question, we seem to have some experts who comment and appear from time to time, and I as a council person, would value any expertise that people might have with us to have an opportunity to ask questions
If
in
you
detail.
have a specific question to ask, you may ask. We can spend just a few more minutes with this, but this is beyond. You don't want to do it tonight?
No,
okay.
no.
But, yeah, we're pretty much through with the comments for tonight. Yes, Councilmember Grace.
I just thought it might be beneficial to clarify in terms of with tabling of this, what happens should we bring it back to at the next full council meeting?
That's my intention.
And
we
don't.
back at 3 readings.
Yes, it comes back at the 3rd reading. So just for those who are concerned about it being an extended delay, if we're able to receive the answers on the city's financial obligations and exactly how the funding structure works, it could be brought back at 3rd reading. It would not start over at 1st reading.
Correct, unless there are amendments.
Right.
If there are amendments made to the ordinance, then it will be read for the first time once those amendments are accepted. So, Councilmember Crowell.
But just to make clear, that's not next week, that's 2 weeks.
Correct. Because next week would be a committee meeting, and we would not be considering regular business at that meeting. So that would be on the 18th, is that right? 18th of November that we would be considering that. Okay. We have a few other items of business. I know that many of you were here for the Baileys. I'm going to give 1 minute. If people are ready to make their exit. And thank you for joining us so much. And thanks for the emails and comments.
I
Thank you.
All right. And we have just a few more items of business. Todd, can you shut the door for us? Or David? One or the other. Thank you. Under announcements and other business, we have a few new commission and committee members. One of them is the appointment to the Housing Appeals Board, and I believe Councilmember Chris Fall has that.
I'd like to nominate for an alternate to the Housing Board of Appeals, Patrick Daugherty.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and second for the appointment of an alternate to the Housing Appeals Board. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. It's been approved. We now have suggestions for 3 new members of the Disabilities Commission. Councilmember McGee.
Thank you. I would first say that the Disability Commission, of which I'm a member, had the opportunity to do some interviews for the commission, and we came up with 3 excellent nominations who have been recommended by the mayor. They would include Samora Dower, who is in her own words, goal-oriented and energetic dual master's degree graduate in counseling and higher education. We were quite impressed and believe that she would bring some good qualities to the commission. Do we need to vote on these separately? Or
no, we can vote on all 3 at once.
The other 2 members would be Sylvester Mata Jr., who is a higher education professional with OU, specializing in Title IX investigation and student development theory, has a great background for the commission itself. And then thank you. The final member would be Preston Sylvie, who was educated at Ohio University and has quite the experience working with disability issues. So the commission recommended all 3, and I would ask the council to approve those recommendations.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries, and they've been appointed. And thanks to all of those people, those 4 individuals, for their service. And for announcements for the committee meeting next week, if committee chairs could check with all due speed to make sure whether or not they have committee items for discussion.
Finance and personnel.
There will be?
Yeah.
Okay. So that may
There always is.
that may be the only one. So we should check to see. Yes.
If there might be a chance I'll have a committee meeting as well.
Service safety. Okay. All right. And the next, yes, Councilmember Grace.
Tuesday?
We will be meeting on Tuesday the 12th, not Monday the 11th, for that committee meeting. And are there any other announcements? Yes, Mayor Patterson.
As I informed council at least a couple weeks ago, that we received notice that we'll be getting a Transportation Alternatives Program grant and a safety grant for streets in the uptown area. One of the streets that ODOT, Ohio Department of Transportation, had said they would fund is State Street between Congress and College. The other was East Union Street from Court to basically to the top of Jeff Hill to University Terrace. We requested that they allow us to shift that particular street, that being East Union, to Washington Street. They have agreed. So now it'll be Washington between College and Congress and State Street between College and Congress as well. So we're quite pleased that they did authorize us to go ahead and shift that. And then to remind council, for the TAP grant, it was $500,000 with a 5% match on the city side. And the safety grant was $500 and $5,000 again, a 5% match with that, which we'll start budgeting for that, looking into the 2023 construction season. It'll be not too dissimilar from what council has seen on the West Union improvements between court and Congress, except larger. So it'll be a really nice enhancement of the uptown area with the uptown decorative lighting on State and Washington Street. We're also exploring some other things. Again, no promises, council, but we are exploring to see, we will do what we typically do, which is whenever we open up the streets, we put conduit underground with the thought to thread it with fiber. But one of the things we are exploring is the possibility of going ahead and threading some of that conduit with fiber and creating uptown Wi-Fi for people coming uptown to enjoy the new streetscape. Again, we have a lot of work to do on that, though, so just keep that in mind, and cost will be one of the issues as we start looking at what some of the amenities could be in the uptown area, in particular on Washington and State Street.
Thank you. If no other announcements, we always have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that were not covered on the agenda. So if there's anything different that we haven't mentioned previously, you could have up to 3 minutes. Okay. If not, we could have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for adjourning. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed nay. We are adjourned at 8:26 p.m. Thank you very much.